The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, even turning a page difficult, if not impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Thursday, August the 13th, 2026. Your readers today,
Jim Duffy
and Ken Drost. And opening the front page, Dems power struggle deepens. Stunner in Wisconsin highlights party divide. Philip M. Bailey of USA Today writes, Democrats' nationwide tug-of-war between their mainstream liberal and more progressive factions continued with another neck-and-neck primary race, this time for the party's nomination for Wisconsin governor. With more than 95% of the vote counted in the contest August 11, Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley, who was backed by party leaders such as Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers, pulled off a Hail Mary victory over State Representative Francesca Hahn, a Democratic socialist who was criticized in the campaign's closing weeks for anti-Thanksgiving social media posts. Crowley won by less than half of a percentage point in an outcome that no statewide surveys had predicted. It marks another significant underperformance by populist outsiders relative to polling, and more proof that the Democratic electorate in key Midwestern swing states is closely divided between its left and center wings. A week after Abdul El Sayed's razor-thin win over the establishment-backed Representative Haley Stevens in the Michigan Senate primary. From day one, this campaign has been about what comes next for Wisconsin, making life more affordable, strengthening our schools, creating good-paying jobs, and making sure opportunity reaches every corner of our state, Crowley posted on X. Speaking to supporters the evening of August 11, Hong stressed that no matter who prevails, the Badger State's politics have changed. We are fighting to become once more what Wisconsin has always been, a place where our future is determined not by corporations and billionaires, but our future that's determined by the working class people who live here, she said. Progressives fared better in Minnesota, where Democratic primary voters handed Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, a progressive, a win over Representative Angie Craig, a centrist, in the campaign to replace retiring Senator Tina Smith. That race had many of the same markings as other bitter primaries this year, but was largely shaped by the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, two U.S. citizens, by federal officers in the state earlier this year. There was also a result that defied polling on the Republican side, as President Trump's near-perfect endorsement record took a hit. Controversy-prone Mike Lindell, the former MyPillow CEO, lost to Minnesota State House Speaker Lisa DeMuth in a Republican primary for governor, despite having led in polls. There were also contests August 11 in Alabama, Connecticut, Vermont, and South Carolina, where newly appointed Senator Darlene Graham, sister of Lindsey, who died unexpectedly in July, jockeyed against 9 GOP rivals in a special election. So here are the key takeaways from the August 11th elections. Democrats remain evenly split. Progressives win in Minnesota. Lindell loses bid for governor. And finally, Darlene Graham glides to victory.
Marine veteran released from Russian prison is back in the United States. From Thao Nguyen of USA Today. U.S. Marine veteran Robert Gilman is back in the United States after being released from a Russian prison where he had been held since 2022, according to senior Trump administration officials. Gilman, who was 32, was welcomed by U.S. officials upon arrival and was expected to receive medical treatment after advocates raised concerns about his deteriorating health while imprisoned in Russia. A State Department plane carrying Gilman arrived at Dulles International Airport outside Washington, D.C. late on August the 11th. Tonight I had the profound privilege of welcoming Robert Gilman home to the United States after more than 4 years of detention in Russia, U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff said in a statement on X on August the 11th. Robert is a patriot, a former United States Marine who served our country with honor. He can now finally return to his family and receive the medical care he needs. Witkoff thanked Russian President Vladimir Putin for granting Gilman a pardon and for his personal engagement throughout this process. President Trump announced Gilman's release earlier in the day, saying Russia agreed to free him on a humanitarian basis and that no prisoner exchange occurred. Sebastian Gorka, the senior director for counterterrorism at the National Security Council, also confirmed on X that Gilman had returned to the United States, writing that the Marine veteran was safely back on American soil. He added that Witkoff had greeted Gilman with hamburgers and milkshakes. After stopping at Dulles, Gilman was en route to a rehabilitation center in San Antonio for medical treatment, according to Reuters, which cited anonymous U.S. officials. Gilman of Lowell, Massachusetts, was imprisoned on charges of assaulting a Russian police officer. U.S. officials and others who advocated for his release have questioned the case. Senator Ed Markey, Democrat from Massachusetts, said Gilman had been diagnosed with dissociative stupor and described him as essentially catatonic. Markey alleged Russian authorities subjected Gilman to physical abuse and forced medication during his detention. Gilman's release leaves several Americans still imprisoned in Russia, including Stephen Hubbard, who was sentenced on who was sentenced on charges that he served in Ukrainian defense forces amid Russia's invasion. U.S. officials said efforts to secure the release of other Americans detained in Russia are ongoing.
More patrons would love adults-only dining section. 75% of consumers surveyed, including 79% of parents, said they want an adults-only dining section. Of restaurant goers, 45% support dog-friendly restaurants, including 16% who want to bring them inside, 29% who support only allowing dogs outside. Betty Lynn Fisher of USA Today writes, the poll says basically leave kids at home, but dogs are okay. So leave the kids at home, but dogs are welcome outside and indoors at restaurants. According to a recent survey of U.S. diners, 75% of consumers surveyed said they want an adults-only dining section, including 79% of parents, according to a study by Lightspeed Commerce Incorporated. It's a good thing I read that headline so I didn't repeat myself. Lightspeed Commerce, a point-of-sale software company whose global clients include the retail and hospitality sectors. Lightspeed's State of Hospitality 2026 report surveyed customers in several countries, but the company shared U.S.-specific data from 1,000 respondents with USA Today. So, when it comes to dogs, nearly half of restaurant goers, that's 45%, support dog-friendly restaurants, including the 16% who want to bring them in, and 29% outside only. Now, Gen Z diners are leading the pack when it comes to bringing pups to restaurants, with support rising to 64%, compared to only 35% of baby boomers. 50% of consumers surveyed said limiting kids or having adults-only dining depends on the setting, and more than a quarter said they supported the idea outright. Consumers were most supportive of restricting kids in restaurants in late evening settings. That's almost half. And designated adults only sections, 46%. Romantic settings, 46%. And alcohol focused venues, 43%. There's some really interesting things happening culturally among diners and generationality. According to Adoniram Sides, Lightspeed's Senior Vice President of Hospitality, as he told USA Today, there's really growing support for adults-only dining spaces. Now, the parents surveyed who said they want kid-free dining options implies a lot of parents themselves think there should be a space not just for bringing your whole family, but having that moment maybe away from the family or enabling other non-parents to dine without kids around. Younger diners were more in favor of adults-only dining sections in sit-down restaurants, but the percentages were still high in all age categories. 84% of both Gen Z and millennials said they wanted adult-only, while 77% of Gen X, 67% of baby boomers were in favor. 56% of the silent generation, that's 80 or older, said they wanted an adult-only dining section. Now, when it comes to dogs, a large percentage of survey responded wanted dogs only on the patios outside, but a growing number even wanted them in. Dogs aren't just for the patio anymore. They are for the whole dining experience, he said. You want to make sure that you're not just getting your pup cup at the drive-thru, but you're getting your pup cup maybe at the dining table as well. Cheryl Pochia, 41, new mom, 5-month-old daughter, Dalia. The Long Island City, New York woman said, it depends for her on when it comes to wanting adult-only options. When it's an adults-only night out, I don't want kids in a restaurant. I don't want the loudness, she told USA Today. If you're going to take a night out, you're trying to take a break. Pochia, who works in the insurance industry, said she'd be in favor of adult-only sections of a restaurant to also protect little ears, since adults on a night out might not be talking about kid-appropriate things, especially when she and others are on a mom's night out. We're swearing. We're having a good time, she said. Pochia and her partner have been to some restaurants where it is clear the vibe is not accommodating to children, since there aren't any high chairs or activities for kids. So it is less likely that parents will bring kids, and the restaurant is trying to say, this is not a kid-friendly restaurant. Maybe you'll get the hint. Nikki Lopez loves kids and dogs, but the Santa Cruz, California woman says there's a time and a place for them at a restaurant, especially a higher-end place. Lopez, who's 35, spends a lot of time with kids as an elementary school teacher. When she and her husband go out to eat, especially at an expensive restaurant or at a bar, Lopez doesn't want kids nearby. Similar to when there were smoking and no smoking sections, Lopez told USA Today, why can't we have adults only? I think it depends on the restaurant. If I'm paying upwards of $50 a plate or more, and upwards of $30 for a drink, or a bottle of wine, or whatever, I don't want that experience ruined for me. Absolutely, I would love an adults only. Lopez said she and her husband, who have chosen not to have children, understand that they can have a child-free lifestyle, but not a child-free world. And while I say that, I also say that there is a time and a place for kids, according to Lopez. For example, she works at a brewery for her summer job and doesn't think kids belong at a bar. Hafizat Bishi, 26, of New York City, is generally fine with kids at a restaurant. Bishi, who works as a media associate, said some parents don't have a choice, but they have to bring their kids to a restaurant. Children are a vulnerable community within our society. They do not have autonomy, and rely heavily on us as adults to take care of them, steer them in the right way, whatnot, Bishi told USA Today. To make them feel other simply because maybe they'll get a little rowdy or emotionally dysregulated, I feel like is a little ridiculous. Now, Bishi is pretty tolerant when it comes to kids causing a scene in a restaurant. She recalled a recent brunch with a friend at a New York City restaurant that she said was expensive, but still family-friendly. There was a child, probably 4 or 5 years old, according to Bishi, who was making a scene. It was annoying, she said, but she was also trying to be understanding. Now, when it comes to adult-only dining, Bishi said even though she doesn't have kids, she doesn't think there needs to be sections only for adults. And she does think parents should leave the kids at home when they're heading to a bar. Lopez also owns a 2-year-old German Shepherd Rottweiler Pit Bull Bulldog mix named Pico. She doesn't bring Pico everywhere, and sometimes doesn't bring him to restaurants where dogs are allowed. So recently Lopez said she and her husband were going to a brunch at a place with a great patio, but the last time they were there, they felt the tables were kind of squeezed close together, and it felt tight. They decided not to bring Pico, since they were unsure if he'd get too excited with extra people and dogs close by. So I was like, let's skip this one, not bring him. But also, that's me knowing my dog, knowing that my dog gets really excited, knowing that it's a more compact space and how dogs act. Lopez has mixed feelings about whether Pico or other dogs should dine indoors. Since she lives in California, excuse me, most restaurants have big patios. She prefers eating outside. A lot of indoor venues have tight quarters or walkways, and Lopez said she doesn't want to worry about Pico getting in the way. She thinks dogs inside on restaurant seatings are an absolute no. Now, Bishi, who doesn't have a dog, isn't sure she supports dogs dining indoors, while some very well-behaved dogs will sit still inside a restaurant. There are many who might startle a waiter or steal food off of a plate. Pochia said she also does not have a dog, but has a brother-in-law who is severely allergic. Said Lopez, I wouldn't want little tiny fingers up at my table just as much as I wouldn't want somebody else's dog's nose coming up to my table. It comes down to being aware of what your kid or your dog can handle in a public setting, she said. It should not be other people's problems. Jim, I have an answer for that. Usually when my wife and I go to a restaurant and there's an obnoxious little kid, I'll stand up, walk over to the table, and scowl at him, and continue to scowl until he cries. So.
Okay, now, where did I leave off here? Trump, 2A. Trump explains his covert jet switch. I go by Secret Service. Carried in container off Air Force One. From Francesca Chambers, Zach Anderson, Swapna Valugopalo Ramaswamy, and Joey Garrison, all USA Today staffers. President Donald Trump says he was acting on the advice of Secret Service when he was covertly carried off Air Force One in a catering container and flown out of Turkey on another military jet. The ruse was a ploy designed to protect the president amid a possible threat to his safety on his trip to Turkey for a NATO summit. It's up to Secret Service. I just follow what they'd like to do. I go by Secret Service and the military, Trump told reporters at the Joint Base Andrews August the 11th as he returned from an event in Ohio. They wanted me to go on a different plane, equal safety, but they wanted me to do it, so I do it. The July 8th incident involved a bait and switch by Trump, who announced he was making an unscheduled stop in the United Kingdom to drop off an old Air Force One on his way back from the Turkey summit. He then took a third plane in secret to England. Reporters and some White House staff traveled on the original plane, effectively acting as decoys. Asked about the safety of the passengers on the jet that was used as a decoy, Trump said the plane he flew on was at greater risk. I think it was at greater risk because that would be the plan I think that they would be more likely to go for, he said. And I'm reading it just as this is printed. Trump arrived at the summit in a red, white, and blue Qatar-gifted jet that his administration had outfitted as a replacement Air Force One. He was seen boarding the powder blue Air Force One. He said his administration would be retiring from service when he departed. But after he was on board, the Washington Post and the New York Times reported he was secretly transferred to another military jet. He flew on that plane from Turkey to the Royal Air Force Mildenhall U.S. Air Force Base in Suffolk, in England. He is believed to have switched back to the Qatari jet, a Boeing 747B, before he flew from England to Joint Base Andrews near Washington, D.C. Asked if he was surprised at having to switch planes, he said he is constantly under threat. I have a lot of threats that you don't know about, he said. Any consequential presidents have a lot of threats. Non-consequential presidents don't get threatened. And I think that I may be the most. Nobody's done more than me in almost 6 years. The ruse reportedly left even some White House aides in the dark. Neither the White House nor the Secret Service responded to questions about the plane switch. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who traveled with Trump to NATO, ignored questions about the flights on August 11th, and the State Department did not respond to requests for comment on which plane he took. USA Today reported that the known swap between the Qatari jet and the highly recognizable American jet came as a security precaution after Trump terminated a ceasefire with Iran over attacks on commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. I'm number one on the kill list for Iran, Trump told reporters at the NATO summit after he publicly announced his plans. The Secret Service urged the White House to depart Turkey in the old plane. A source familiar with the matter told USA Today at the time, speaking on the condition of anonymity, to discuss sensitive security matters. The New York Times reported that U.S. officials were concerned about Iranian proxy forces attacking Air Force One. The threat was relayed to Trump by Israel, and it involved targeting the jetliner with shoulder-fired missiles, according to the Wall Street Journal. What wasn't known at the time, that Trump was not on either plane. Trump has flown on both the Qatari gifted jet and the older blue and white planes since the incident. On August the 9th, he took short flight from the Morristown Airport near his Bedminster Golf Club in New Jersey to Joint Base Andrews on the smaller of two powder blue planes that have traditionally served as Air Force One. Earlier in the weekend, on his way to the golf club, Trump landed at Newark Airport, changing up his regular flight pattern. He was back on the red, white, and blue Qatari gifted jet on August 11th when he traveled to Ohio for a government-sponsored sporting event. The president signed a peace deal with Iran in June, but it fell apart during the NATO summit, and the president ordered new strikes on Tehran that lasted nearly 2 weeks.
Big Bend border construction of wall, dubbed an invasion. Trevor Hughes of USA Today writes, contractors building President Donald Trump's southwest border wall are bulldozing portions of Big Bend National Park in Texas, sparking fresh outrage from longtime area residents and even environmental groups. It's horrifying. It's an invasion, an occupation, said Rio Grande River guide Mike Davidson, who's lived in the area for nearly 50 years. Trump campaigned on tough immigration enforcement and border controls, and he has made expansion of the border wall a key campaign promise. Congress last summer supercharged Trump's efforts with $46.5 billion in funding, and federal officials in June waived dozens of environmental regulations to speed up wall construction in or near the national park. Construction is expected to include blasting new roads through the area so Border Patrol personnel can better reach remote areas of the park, which is about 330 miles southeast of El Paso. Protesters have argued that there's little illegal immigration because the area is so rugged. The National Parks Conservation Association, which has repeatedly sued the Trump administration over environmental issues, condemned the construction. Now, bulldozing Big Bend National Park is an unconscionable attack on one of America's greatest treasures, according to Tiernan Sittenfeld, NPCA's president and CEO. The border wall expansion has sparked controversy elsewhere. In July, example, conservationists demonstrated after a group of trees believed to be more than 100 years old were felled at the U.S.-Mexico border to make way for the barrier. The 3 cottonwood trees stood in Lochiel, Arizona, for more than a century, according to Eric Meza, a board program coordinator in the state for the Sierra Club. The massive trees had long been a home for rare species and a shady place for neighbors to gather. In May, the Roman Catholic Diocese of Las Cruces in New Mexico asked a federal judge to block the government's acquisition of a portion of Mount Cristo Rey. It's a religious site topped with a statue of Jesus on the Texas-Mexico-New Mexico border. That lawsuit is still going on. Big Bend National Park was formally created in 1944. Spans about 801,000 acres of desert and mountains, in part along the Rio Grande corridor. The park's southern boundary forms about 118 miles of the U.S.-Mexico border. Protests against the border wall over the past several years have included some Trump voters, many local elected officials, environmental activists, and migrant rights organizations. The exact path of the border wall through Big Bend remains uncertain. Earlier in the year, the Trump administration indicated that it would skip building a physical barrier along about 372 miles of the border because of unfavorable terrain or remoteness of the location. Other locations will receive vehicle bollards that will let wildlife pass through unimpeded, according to the Department of Homeland Security. Now, DHS officials did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Local residents say they are dissatisfied with DHS's assurances that not all of the park is getting a wall, and argue that the road construction itself is an environmental catastrophe. Environmental groups, including the NBCA and the Center for Biological Diversity, have sued to stop wall construction. Those lawsuits are ongoing. But Davidson, the Rio Grande River guide, said he thinks there will be no recourse from the courts. He added he believes the White House is pushing to finish as much construction as possible before the midterm elections and the possibility that Democrats could retake Congress and stop progress. Some Big Bend area residents have argued that more cameras and better remote surveillance technology would be both less destructive and more effective at securing a border area that rarely sees significant illegal migration from Mexico. Tourism, a major industry in the area with about 568,000 people visiting the national park last year, according to the National Park Service. This is the most heinous attack on an American national park in generations. Lakin Jordal, a national public lands advocate for the Center of Biological Diversity, said in an August 6 statement, "Big Bend belongs to us all, and sacrificing it is a betrayal of every Texan and every American who believes our national parks should be protected." Davidson said residents are hoping Congress can pressure the White House to back off. There's almost unanimous local opposition, he told USA Today, and that is becoming more and more vocal as the scale of destruction becomes apparent.
ACLU challenges a new birthright order. The civil rights group fought Trump's earlier efforts. From Maureen Grupp of USA Today. Civil rights groups that successfully fought President Trump's first attempt to curtail birthright citizenship are targeting his latest efforts. The American Civil Liberties Union and other groups asked a federal judge on August 11th to make it unquestionably clear that Trump's new directive cannot be enforced. Trump's executive orders are a ham-handed attempt to distract the American people from the Supreme Court's clear holding that birthright citizenship is protected by our Constitution. Carol Rhodes, executive director at the ACLU of Massachusetts, said in a statement.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:30.
Continuing, in June, the Supreme Court affirmed that children born in the United States to parents who are unlawfully or temporarily present in the country are citizens at birth. The few exceptions to birthright citizenship are for children of foreign diplomats or babies born to enemies in occupied territory. But Trump this month issued new orders seeking to expand those exceptions. The president's first order on August the 6th declares certain individuals are ineligible for birthright citizenship if neither of their parents is a citizen, including the child of an alien enemy or foreign government employee. It also targets the children of parents who engage in a commercial transaction to access birthright citizenship, including paying to ensure that the person's mother is present in the United States or a territory of the United States to give birth. In a second order, which the ACLU has not challenged, Trump tasked the State Department and Department of Homeland Security with stopping individuals from entering the country for the purpose of engaging in birth tourism. The administration said it is focused on children who do not fall within the rule of birthright citizenship as announced by the Supreme Court. But the ACLU argues Trump is continuing to claim power to redefine birthright citizenship that the Supreme Court said he does not have. To avoid any doubt in this regard, the group said in a filing in federal court in New Hampshire, the court should underscore that the government may not strip away class members' citizenship through any executive orders or other similarly flawed assertions of executive power over birthright citizenship. Trump has sought to restrict birthright citizenship as part of a sweeping, hardline immigration agenda centered around mass deportations. He campaigned on a promise to overturn the constitutional provision and attended Supreme Court oral arguments in the case which bore his name, Trump v. Barbara. Among the Trump administration's arguments for limiting birthright citizenship, birth tourism incentivizes illegal immigration and threatens national security. The justices ruled 6-3 against the Trump administration in late June. Citizenship then and now was the right to have rights, to freely participate in our political community. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote for the majority. The framers of the 14th Amendment extended that promise to every free-born person in the land. We keep that promise today.
Consumer prices were up in July as inflation actually dipped. Slower pace could mean that there's good news ahead. Rachel Barber of USA Today writes, although U.S. consumer prices ticked up last month, the annual inflation rate eased up a bit again in July, according to the Labor Department as of today. From June to July, consumer prices rose 0.1%, in line with forecasters' expectations. Over the year, they were up 3.4%, excuse me, meaning prices still rose, but at a slower pace. After surging since the start of the Iran war, which drove gas prices up, the annual inflation rate fell from 4.2% in May to 3.5% in June. A deceleration in year-over-year price increases could be good news for consumers who are struggling with the cost of living, although their paychecks still may not be keeping up. Average hourly earnings for employees on private non-farm payrolls rose just 3.2% over the year in July. Though slowing annual inflation is probably a welcome sign to Federal Reserve officials who have promised to deliver price stability, it remains well above the Fed's 2% target, as it has for the past 5 years. Policymakers' next interest rate decision in September remains difficult to predict, as officials are waiting for August data. Still, Cooling annual inflation combined with a weak July jobs report should lower expectations for a September rate increase, according to Seema Shah, Principal Asset Management Chief Global Strategist, although she said it does not put it completely to bed. With the Strait of Hormuz still shut, upside inflation risks will remain top of mind for the foreseeable future. We expect no change in rates this year, but cannot dismiss the elevated risks of a hike later in the year if energy disruptions are sustained, while the threat of an AI-induced rise in inflation also cannot be ignored. Core inflation is the department's way to measure price increases while excluding volatile food and energy costs. It's closely watched for evidence of whether underlying price pressures are easing amidst supply shocks that can drive the headline consumer price index number higher. The July reading supports the view that higher oil prices have not led to wider price increases, according to Brock Weimer, an investment strategy analyst at Edward Jones. Core inflation rose 0.2 over the month after staying put in June. Over the year, up 2.5 in July, slightly lower than the 2.6 pace recorded the month before. It is possible that the waning effects of tariff rollbacks and perhaps the effects of the reimposition of some tariffs put upward pressure on good prices. David Royal, Thrivent's chief financial and investment officer, said in another note to USA Today. If so, the cooling of goods inflation in recent months could be fleeting. Americans may have paid a bit less for groceries last month. The department's food at home index fell 0.1 over the month, but it was still up 2.7 over the year. In July, lettuce prices fell 16.4 as consumers shied away from the products because of a widespread outbreak of cyclosporiasis. Meats, poultry, fish, and eggs index decreased 0.7 over the month, driven by a 1.5% decline in pork. Dairy and related products got a bit cheaper too. Their index fell 0.1 in July. Now, some items got more expensive, however. Non-alcoholic beverage prices rose 0.9, and the index for cereal and bakery products ticked up 0.2 last month. Dining out also got pricier last month. The department's food away from home index rose 0.3 over the month and up 3.4 over the past 12. Is gas getting cheaper? Well, although gas prices rose in the second half of July as the war continued disrupting oil traffic in the Strait, they were lower last month on average than in June. Over the month, the department's index for gas fell 2.9%. Gas prices are still up 24.6% over the year. So whether or not prices fall again in this month is going to depend on how negotiations progress between the U.S. and Iran over the coming weeks. As of August 12, the national average price of a gallon of regular unleaded was $4.04, according to the AAA. That's up from $3.88 last month, but down from $4.08 last week. So what does all this mean for the Fed? July CPI reports will help inform federal policymakers, but it's unlikely to settle debate around the September decision all by itself. Officials will also have August employment data and a second inflation report before they meet September 15 and 16. Fed policymakers tend to base their decisions on observed trends, not single reports. Inflation surged in the spring, but has moderated in recent months, remains too high for some officials' comfort. 3 members of the rate-setting committee dissented from the Fed's decision in July to leave its benchmark for interest rates unchanged. They preferred a quarter-point increase. The Fed typically raises the federal funds rate to tame inflation. But officials are also watching the job market. after historically low hiring last year that prompted the Fed to lower its benchmark rate 3 times late last year. Job creation rebounded in the spring, slowed again in June. In July, U.S. employers shed 23,000 jobs. Fed Chair Kevin Warsh's remarks after the June meeting further complicated forecasts when he said markets may be doing some of the Fed's inflation fighting work for it. Ahead of the July inflation report, traders were about evenly split on whether the Fed would hike or hold the September meeting. After its release, more are betting on a hold, according to FedWatch. And finally, what does the Fed chair want? President Trump, who has consistently pressured the Fed to lower rates in his second term, said August 10 he talked to Warsh a few days ago and implied Warsh would like to see the federal fund rate lower too. He's got a board. It's not only him, Trump told reporters in the Oval Office. If it was up to him, it'd be different. Now, although Warsh has made it clear he doesn't want to let people know what he thinks is the best path for rates, Fed watchers may learn more from his scheduled appearance at the Jackson Hole Economic Policy Symposium at the end of this month. The president says a variety of things, and they may be reflective of what Chairman Warsh is thinking, but they also may be more reflective of what he's thinking and what he's hoping for, according to Chester Spatt, Carnegie Mellon University finance professor.
Turning to the money section of USA Today, job security is the priority for U.S. workers. More than half have taken less pay to stay. From Medora Lee of USA Today, work-life what? More than half of U.S. workers, 54%, said they'd accept a pay cut just to keep working, according to Monster's 2026 job security report that includes responses from 1,020 U.S. employees polled on July 17th. In 2024, more than half of Americans in a Ford Trends survey said they were willing to take a 20% pay cut to have a better work-life balance. The reversal comes amid economic uncertainties, making workers feel insecure about their financial footing and their futures, analysts said. A few years ago, workers prioritized work-life balance. Now, sentiments have shifted into protecting their job overall, said Vicky Salemi, a career expert at jobs listings site Monster. Factoring in artificial intelligence anxiety, layoffs and restructuring job security reigns supreme. Their mindset falls more along the lines of, at least I still have a job, rather than pounding the pavement without a steady paycheck and health insurance. How much is stability worth? More than 1 in 4, 26% of respondents said they'd take a pay cut of up to 5%, according to Monster. Another 28 would accept a reduction of 5% or more, including 11% who would accept a pay cut greater than 10%. In today's labor market, predictability and stability may outweigh the promise of higher earnings for many professionals, Salemi said. It's not just Americans who would give up for steady work. 3 in 5, 61% of workers said they'd be willing to give up at least one aspect of their compensation or workplace experience. That's significant, Salemi said. The data shows that job security has become one of the most valuable assets when it comes to employment and compensation. More than a quarter, 26% of respondents, said they'd sacrifice some bonuses, incentives, workplace perks, or benefits, according to the survey. Almost unheard of a few years ago, 23% said they'd give up workplace flexibility, including remote work options, the data show. The right to remain remote has been a battleground between employees and major companies. 17% even said they'd accept higher health insurance costs, according to Monster. And how can workers find a steady, secure job? If job security is important to you, Monster has some tips to use during your search. They include: check the company's financial health, including whether it's a profitable or laid off any employees recently. Ask about the company's growth, expansion plans, organizational goals, and measures of success. Evaluate the entire job offer. A slightly lower salary may be worthwhile if the role offers greater long-term stability and growth, according to the report. Check employee tenure and turnover. Organizations with strong retention often provide a more stable work environment and clearer career paths. And finally, ask about job growth. Job security matters, but so do opportunities to learn new skills and advance your career.
Caregivers of parents face money concerns. Now, lawyers are offering advice on how to avoid lawsuits. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:45. Medora Lee writes the following article. An adult child suddenly thrust into caring for an aging parent is a stressful enough situation, but it often pales in comparison to what can come next, according to experts. Unprovoked criticisms, accusations of stealing from the ailing parent, and misguided health decisions often emerge from folks, especially siblings and other family members, who usually aren't even interested or participating in the day-to-day caregiving work, according to experts. Now, after the parent dies, what started out as rumblings sometimes escalates to lawsuits against the child who did all the work during their final years. Over the next decade, as mortality rates for baby boomers rise and their estates transition to their beneficiaries, the courts are going to be flooded in a probate storm of contested inheritance disputes, according to the American Bar Association. That means many burned out adult children are probably also going to face expensive lawyer fees while still grieving a parent's death, and when money is already stretched. Occasionally there is a legitimate reason for the family to be suspicious, but more often than not, the caregivers who didn't want to be involved in parent care are not interested in an explanation for what they view as their lost inheritance, said Carol Bradley Bursack, certified dementia support group facilitator and author. They want vengeance, and occasionally this even results in a lawsuit. So, what's at stake? It is estimated that the great wealth transfer is going to move $124 trillion from the older baby boomer generation to younger heirs over the coming decades. However, family conflicts could erode much of that wealth, experts say. Family conflicts related to inheritance are among the most common factors undermining wealth transfers. Approximately 1/3 of people 50 or older have experienced conflict in their family related to inheritance at the time of a loved one's death, according to AARP. Disputes that rise to litigation are costly. Legal fees, delays, administrative costs sometimes consume assets meant for heirs or charities. Families may spend months, even years, embroiled in probate, with wealth tied up and inaccessible. Now, unless the adult child caregiver is an executor or a trustee, that child also is going to have to pay his or her own legal fees to defend against any accusations of stealing or poor medical choices, according to experts. Executors and trustees may be able to tap estate funds for legal fees. Unfortunately, the way our legal system works, you could be sued for shooting JFK. It does not mean you'll lose, but you'll have to fight and spend money, said Larry Mendeckler, partner at Venable LLP. Deepening financial woes add trauma, according to experts. The emotional and financial stress of this family's betrayal, on top of what is often years of sacrifice to care for aging parents, can prove to be too much. One wonderful caregiver who stayed in touch with me was in this situation, and her solution? Suicide. This woman had brought her mother, who had developed early onset Alzheimer's, into her own home, where she cared for her over many years. What a sad, heartbreaking end to a life that had been devoted to being a helper. Fractured relationships undermine families and communities. A 2024 Harris poll showed 35% out of 1,068 U.S. adults surveyed said that they were estranged from an immediate family member, such as a parent or sibling. Before taking on the primary caregiver role, talk to a lawyer. Enlisting a lawyer is going to help, and it'll probably cost money and time, but it may pay off later if it prevents major disputes. You need to go in and meet with another elder law attorney and get power of attorney and sign caregiver documents, according to Patrick Simasco, elder law attorney and financial advisor at Simasco Law. Before touching your parent, see a lawyer. Ask, what do I do to stay out of trouble? Now, some ways to stay out of trouble, attorneys say, includes keep detailed records. The best defense is really careful records. If you write a check for $1,500 and it is to reimburse yourself, make sure you have the paperwork showing you paid for a caregiver or cabs to get to the doctor's appointments. Defending against abuse claims heavily depends on facts, precise records, and concrete proof. Over-communication. If you're not keeping family apprised on what is happening in their loved ones' lives, including financially, then surprises come and lend themselves to lawsuits, according to Scott Ron, partner at RMO LLP. Sunlight is the best antiseptic, so report monthly, annually. Keep family informed. Here's what's going on with medical and financials. He acknowledged this is added work for a strained caregiver, but AI can help summarize emails for financials and provide a monthly report that you can send. Next, caregiver agreement. A parent can legally compensate a child for caregiving services, but it needs to be a written contract between parent and an adult child that formally defines the service being provided and the compensation rate. It turns an informal family arrangement into a legal transaction that can protect everybody involved. And finally, clear and well-documented estate plans, not just clearly written wills, POAs and living wills, but private attorney meetings with the parent and clear records of their stated wishes. Issues are the strongest defense available to the caregiving child. So, what if there wasn't time for all of this? Planning is always the best way to avoid problems, but caregiving needs often emerge suddenly. It is best, of course, if the family can lay out a plan ahead of time, preferably with the help of an elder care attorney, so that expectations are clear. But life is not always that neat, she says. It's common for an emergency to occur, or cognitive decline to suddenly become evident, and somebody has to help. In these situations, the family member who steps up is rarely going to think to keep every receipt and maintain detailed logs, since they're already overwhelmed by caregiving needs. Even with a well-documented paper trail, somebody is still going to push through, even though the court will likely side with a well-documented caregiver's account. When greed and selfishness meet in this way, the caregiver loses. I hope that one day in-home care will be a covered Medicare benefit. This would be a step forward in supporting the people who, by some estimates, save the government more than $1 billion every year by providing unpaid care for our vulnerable elders.
Mm-hmm. America's 10 Best Colleges for Success. LinkedIn ranks schools based on career success, from Daniel Devise of USA Today. Lehigh University is a selective Pennsylvania institution with a national reputation and a $2 billion endowment. Lehigh does well in college rankings, but usually not as well as the University of Chicago or Columbia. Yet those schools rank just above and below Lehigh in a new college ranking titled LinkedIn Top Colleges 2026. The ranking uses LinkedIn data to identify 50 colleges and universities that best set their graduates up for career success. In terms of internships, job placement, professional networking, and other factors. The resulting list recognizes schools such as Lehigh, where 88% of graduates complete internships and 89,000 belong to a vigorous alumni network. Fundamentally, for a long time, we've been about student outcomes, said Nathan Urban, provost of Lehigh. Do they get good jobs? Do they have good careers 10 years after they've left the university? College rankings are everywhere these days. U.S. News still offers its venerable list of best colleges, a ranking that favors schools with the largest endowments and lowest admission rates. Other rankings focus more on international standing, access and affordability, or return on investment. College leaders decry rankings as arbitrary. It is even fair to compare Princeton, the Ivy League campus that ranks first in the latest U.S. News rankings of National University, to MIT, the science and technology powerhouse that ranks second. But high school seniors and their families turn to rankings every fall, hoping to differentiate among the approximately 4,000 degree-granting colleges in America. They need information. They need guidance. Rankings are one of the source of that guidance, says Urban of Lehigh University. I prefer rankings that are focused on actual outcomes. What happens to the students who goes to these universities? The LinkedIn rankings, released August the 4th, mime data from the massive professional networking site to find the college that seem to deliver the strongest career preparation and support to their students based on 5 metrics: job placement, internships, career success, network strength, and knowledge, breadth, and how many fields of study, unique skills recent alumni pursued.
You're listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for Thursday, August the 13th, 2026, on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after the short break. Your readers today,
Jim Duffy
and Ken Trost.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Your readers are
Ken Drost.
and Jim Duffy. And moving on to our sports section, Lakers being sold for a record $12.5 billion from Scooby Axon of USA Today. The Los Angeles Lakers are being sold for a record $12.5 billion, less than 2 years after the Los Angeles Dodgers co-owner and TWG Global CEO Mark Walter bought the team from the Buss family, according to ESPN.com. The sale to businessman Joshua Kushner and former Disney CEO Robert Iger would mark the highest amount paid ever paid, for a North American sports franchise, surpassing the $10 billion that Walter paid for the Lakers. As lifelong NBA fans, we are deeply honored for the opportunity to become stewards of the Los Angeles Lakers, one of the most iconic sports franchises in the world. We have immense respect for the leadership and vision of Jerry and Jeannie Buss. Our long-term commitment is to build on that foundation, compete at the highest level, and serve this extraordinary team, its fans, and the city of Los Angeles, Kushner and Iger said in a statement. Walter bought the Lakers in 2025 from the family of Dr. Jerry Buss, who owned the franchise from 1979 until his death in 2013. At the time of his death, the franchise was passed on to his 6 children, with his daughter Jeannie becoming the team's governor and being named controlling owner in 2017. Buss remained the governor even with the sale to Walter as the team moves forward in a new era with superstar Luka Doncic, but must replace the production of NBA all-time scoring leader LeBron James, who led them to a championship in 2020, but left in free agency this summer to join the Philadelphia 76ers. Walter has not commented on why he is selling the team, but 2 companies tied to Walter are under federal investigation as the government looks into the financial dealings of the billionaire's businesses. Owning the Los Angeles Lakers has been one of the great honors of my life, an extraordinary investment, Walter said in part in a statement.
Winning Brew. Milwaukee, an overlooked powerhouse of late, a tale as old as time. John Heffling of USA Today writes, with about 40 games left in the regular season, the Milwaukee Brewers boast the best record in Major League Baseball at 74-46. A half game ahead of the Tampa Bay Rays and 2 ahead of the Atlantic Braves and Los Angeles Dodgers. They are on a pace to win the National League Central for the 4th year in a row, all while improving their win-loss record every year. Yet, despite the impeccable record going into August 12th, a Cy Young frontrunner and high-end base running, several fans and experts don't seem to be taking the Brewers seriously as World Series contenders. According to BetMGM, the Brewers do have the 3rd best odds of winning the 2026 World Series at plus 1,000. But that's a far cry from the favorite Dodgers at plus 155. Sure, the Dodgers have won 2 consecutive World Series, made the best acquisitions of this year's trade deadline, and boast a starting rotation that could go toe-to-toe with the Avengers. But when the playoffs come around, anything can happen, right? The Brewers have improved each of the last 4 years, getting further in playoffs at the same time. Last year, they reached the NL Championship Series for the first time since 2018. And although they were swept by the Dodgers, it was a step in the right direction. If their trajectory over the last few years keeps up, they could very well find themselves in the Fall Classic this time. So, why have they been overlooked? Is it because they have to stare down the mighty Dodgers? Or is there something else that fans are overlooking? Last year, the Dodgers entered the postseason as the National League's number 3 seed. Despite winning the previous World Series, many fans thought the Dodgers might not have what it takes to repeat. Obviously, they did. It took them just 4 games to dispatch the Brewers in the NLCS and 7 games to take care of the Toronto Blue Jays in the World Series. This year, the team supposedly got even better. The Dodgers acquired the biggest name during free agency in outfielder Kyle Tucker and added strong relief options in Kirby Yates and closer Edwin Diaz, despite spending a ton of money just 1 year prior on closer Tanner Scott, who really didn't pan out. So, in all fairness, Kyle Tucker has not panned out either. The $60 million a year man has been underwhelming in 2026, boasting just a .722 OPS. Does that really matter, though? The Dodgers have the funds and the talent to make even massive flops look irrelevant. Look no further than last year, when the team acquired Scott to be their closer and did not perform well. Did the Dodgers have to recover from a poor signing? No. They just spent a bunch more money on Diaz for the next year. Tucker, he's different though. He's an everyday player, taking away reps from other potential stars. In the playoffs, an outfielder is more important than a late inning arm who can only go once every 2 or 3 days. Furthermore, Tucker hasn't been that great in the postseason recently. Since 2023, Tucker has gone 13 out of 67. That's .194, with only 4 extra base hits across 21 postseason games. He still does well to get on base, drawing nearly as many walks as he has strikeouts in that span. His bat has not been a threat when October rolls around, and with how poorly he's been playing this year, perhaps that massive offseason acquisition is finally going to come back to haunt the Dodgers. The team as a whole also has clearly taken a step back on offense. When the Dodgers won the World Series in 2020, they led all of Major League Baseball in runs scored. They did the same in 2024 and were second in 2025. This year, they have not fallen so far behind, ranking tied for third at 602 with the Brewers, right behind them at fifth, 589. But it's evidence that while the Brewers have been climbing these last few years, the Dodgers have been falling. A slow fall, but a fall nonetheless. And with how highly touted the Dodgers pitching staff is, it's easy to look over the fact that the Dodgers rank 7th in MLB in earned run average at .372, while the Brewers rank 4th at .354. If the Major League playoffs began today, these are the teams that would represent the National League. Number 1, Milwaukee Brewers. Number 2, Atlanta Braves. Number 3, Los Angeles Dodgers. Number 4, Chicago Cubs. 5, Philadelphia Phillies. And number 6, Arizona Diamondbacks or San Diego Padres. Now, other teams like the St. Louis Cards and Miami Marlins are in the hunt as well. This season, when facing those 8 other teams, the Brewers boast a 27-15 record. They've won almost half of their games against the best teams in the National League. For perspective, the Dodgers have a 24-23 record against those same teams, subbing the Dodgers themselves for the Brewers, of course. The Braves own a 26-16 record. Good, but not as great as the Brewers. In all fairness, both the Dodgers and Braves own 2-1 records against Milwaukee this year. But that's just one series. Anything can happen in 3 games. We can't assume either team would have the advantage in a 7-game series. The Cubs are the only team in the National League with the better or similar record than the Brewers against those teams competing for spots in the playoffs at 28-15. But the Cubs have gone 2-4 against Milwaukee this year and have recorded just a .163 batting average and .544 OPS in those games. As mentioned earlier, the Brewers currently boast the 4th best team earned run average in baseball and the best in the league. But does that matter in the playoffs? In 2025, the Dodgers ranked 16th in Major League Baseball in team earned run average. 2024, they ranked 13th. In 2023, the Texas Rangers ranked 18th. In recent years, team pitching hasn't mattered as much as you might think come the postseason. While in 2022, the Houston Astros ranked second in team ERA before winning it all, recent years have favored offensive powerhouses. So that said, while team pitching hasn't mattered as much, single dominant pitching performance have reigned supreme. Just last year, we saw Yoshinobu Yamamoto drag the Dodgers to a World Series title. Yamamoto's Herculean performance was the biggest reason the Dodgers won it all. A single, untouchable arm can make all the difference in a 7-game series. And guess which team has the best pitcher in baseball right now? Jacob Misiorowski has undoubtedly been the best arm in baseball this year. And it stands to reason that should the going get tough in the playoffs, the Brewers would turn to their 24-year-old arm. The question is whether Misiorowski could handle such a massive workload in such a short span. Now, after all, Yamamoto is currently averaging more than 6.3 innings of work per start, while Misiorowski is averaging barely 6. Now, that might not seem like a huge difference, but it is. This season, Misiorowski has yet to make an appearance on fewer than 4 days of rest. In the postseason, it's going to be shorter. Furthermore, he only pitched more than 100 pitches in a game 3 times. He also only goes into the 7th inning in about 33% of his games. On the bright side, 5 out of the 7 games in which he pitched into the 7th came in a 6-game stretch between May 13th and June 12th of this year. He gave up just 1 earned run in that stretch, never had more than 5 days rest, and threw more than 90 pitches in 4 of those games. Despite his high velocity, that stretch shows potential for a workhorse load in the playoffs, and that might be exactly what they need. And finally, of course, there are still more than 40 games left in the regular season, and 1 cold stretch could sour any momentum the Brewers have built thus far. They had lost 2 in a row to the Padres entering August 12th, and were 5-5 over the last 10 games. So look no further than what is currently happening to the Dodgers. On August 10th, the Brewers embarked on a 12-game stretch during which they will face the Padres, Dodgers, and Braves. Now, those series could be a good measuring stick to see just how the Brewers can handle high-caliber opponents day in and day out. This will be just the 2nd series against both the Dodgers and Braves for Milwaukee this year.
Accolades don't match Roberts' record in L.A. From Bob Nightingale, a columnist for USA Today. Los Angeles Dodgers manager Dave Roberts, sitting in the visiting office with the door closed, leans back in his chair behind a desk, momentarily shuts his eyes and listens to the quiet before starting to talk. It's 3.5 hours before game time, and for the time being there is peace before the turbulence sets in beginning August 13th with the Milwaukee Brewers and their league best record coming into town, followed by the pennant race, the push for the top seed, the September clinching celebrations, and then the sheer madness of October. It's become a rite of passage for Roberts, who has been in the postseason all 10 years of his managerial career, winning 3 World Series championships, 5 National League pennants, and reaching 1,000 victories quicker than any manager in history. There are times he still can't believe it. A journeyman player who will be remembered for his stolen base with the Boston Red Sox and their historic comeback in the 2004 American League Championship Series against the New York Yankees, Roberts is already acclaimed as one of the most successful managers in the history of the game. Never in my wildest dreams, he says, did I think this would happen. And now, to be talked about with some of the greats that led their organizations to championships. My goodness. Roberts breaks into a slow smile and exhales, wondering himself how he's been able to survive this grind for a decade, still have the same energy and enthusiasm as if he's a teenager who got a free pass to Disneyland. The relentless demands, motivating his team for months, staying in constant contact with the front office, answering questions from the largest media throng in baseball before and every game, managing 162 regular season games and then the postseason a microscope. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 1:15. Continuing, if the Dodgers win the World Series as they have the last 2 years, Roberts simply has done his job. If the Dodgers aren't the same team standing, the season is a failure. It's hardly fair, but it comes with the job as manager of the richest and most powerful team in the sport, where the pressure can be relentless. The best part of my day, he quietly says, is the national anthem. All of the prep, the conversations, and everything else is over. But once I hear the national anthem, then it's just about a one-game competition, us versus them. There will be a precious free time for Roberts these next 2 months. But for 45 minutes, he carved out time to bear his feelings in a wide-ranging interview with USA Today Sports. He talks about a book that he's written, how long he plans to keep managing, his exasperation from those underestimating his managerial and tactical skills, his annoyance over the Manager of the Year award, potentially coaching in the Olympics, the debate on whether the Dodgers are ruining baseball, and the legacy he wants to leave behind. Roberts, who signed a 4-year, $32.4 million contract extension through 2029, originally intended to manage just through the contract and walk away as one of the few to go out on his own terms. Now he has changed his mind. He wants to keep going. For how long, he doesn't really know. But he wants to make an indelible impact, not only with the Dodgers, not only in baseball, but in life. If it's this desire that has Roberts writing a book that will be released next spring, Relentlessly Positive. It's not a memoir, Roberts says. There's no top secret stuff. It's just an opportunity for me to kind of have my voice in something positive and something that people in all walks of life could pull from. There's so much negativity in the world, but I want this to be something that touches executives, regular people, leaders, people that want to be leaders, things that are not always tangible or you can quantify, but matter. It's just my overarching thoughts on cultured leadership. Roberts, who is the son of a black father, who was a career United States Marine Corps Master Gunnery Sergeant and Japanese mother, has been relentlessly positive his entire life. He was a 28th round draft pick from UCLA who had a 10-year career. He overcame stage 2 Hodgkin's lymphoma in 2010. He spent 6 years in the San Diego Padres front office and coaching staff before anyone would even interview him for a managerial job. The Dodgers called, but their first choice was Gabe Kapler. Roberts got the job anyway in 2016. While the Padres have since gone through 6 managers, Roberts is already the Dodgers' 4th longest tenured manager in franchise history. This is a tough job, managing us with all the personalities in here, Dodgers World Series hero Miguel Rojas tells USA Today Sports. He deals with so much stuff, but he keeps things under control. This is the only clubhouse I've been a part of that everybody is happy with their job. You know how hard that is to have 26 guys on the same page and guys who want to play every day, but he does a really good job of making everybody understand where they are. He always has a good touch on when and how to send a message. Roberts called out his team on August the 10th during their 1-8 stretch, imploring them to wake up if they want that first-round bye. He had a private meeting a week ago with their position players, reminding them that what they've done winning the last 2 World Series doesn't mean a damn thing this year. He told us that he's happy and proud, really fortunate that he had the opportunity to manage back-to-back championship teams, Rojas said. But he also said that he could care less about the last 2 years. He wants us to win so bad. That's the motivator he is. He's still hungry to win this year and wants everybody else to be hungry. He told us that we have the opportunity to do something historic. So let's take advantage of it. The Dodgers could become the first National League team to win 3 consecutive World Series championships. a feat accomplished only by the New York Yankees and Oakland Athletics in the American League. Who knows, maybe a third consecutive title will get folks' attention that perhaps Roberts should be considered in the same vein as Walter Alston and Tommy Lasorda before him. He has the greatest winning percentage, 1,015 through 624, for a 6.19 percentage of any manager in history. The only National League manager to reach the postseason in each of his first 10 seasons, and has the third most postseason victories, 69, behind Hall of Famers Joe Torre with 84 and Tony La Russa with 71. It's interesting because when you've had success, there's always going to be people that try to minimize things, Roberts says, or downplay or hate on what you do. But I think for me, it's more just focusing internally on things that are important. Is the people's hate of the Dodgers good for baseball? Just like now, fans all over sports landscape can debate whether the Dodgers are good or bad for the game. It is good to have a team that has brilliant front office, a future Hall of Fame manager, a payroll 4 times the size of some other teams, or is it good to have a villain, just like the Yankees during their dynasty, the New England Patriots in their Super Bowl run, or the Boston Celtics in their golden era? When I hear people debating that, Roberts said, I think that's a great thing for the game. It's great for fans. At least they're talking about baseball, not football. I'd rather them hate us than be talking about the Cowboys. I remember going in with a small winery with Red Stitch Wine in 2007, and we're going over the blend. I asked my winemaker, is there any competition? Is there any brand like ours that people may drink? He says, Davey, let me tell you something. In the wine business, if people are drinking wine, we all win. So if you love baseball, you talk about baseball. You can philosophize on it, theorize on it, debate it. Sure, I would love for them to love the Dodgers. But man, even if you hate us, you're talking about baseball, and that's a win for all of us. Maybe one day as the playoff berths and championships keep mounting, they'll be talking about Roberts too. You don't see him throwing temper tantrums on the bench, getting into the face of umpires, or putting on a show to make it about him. He just quietly leaves, and not only is beloved by everyone in the game, but respected by every player in the clubhouse. He doesn't take credit, nor does he ever throw his players under the bus. He simply demands professionalism. I tell myself every day, please, Lord, don't make it about me, Roberts says. Really, I fight that every single day because I don't want my ego to bleed into decision-making. That was the great thing about Dusty, his humility. He just always made it about the players. But some people get some notoriety and success, and they want to make it about themselves. I'm very mindful of stuff like that. Be positive, stay humble, don't change. He never will.
Rose sets aim to stay elite at 46. Adam Schupak of Golf Week writes, Justin Rose is proud that having turned 46 less than 2 weeks ago, he enters the FedEx Cup playoffs at number 24 and bucking the PGA Tour trends of pros in their 40s, especially their late 40s, trying to hang on to whatever status that they can manage until becoming eligible at 50 for the PGA Tour Champions. Now, only 70 players qualified for the FedEx Cup playoffs, and Rose did so for the 19th time in 20 years, marking the most of any player in the field. He's one of 4 40-somethings to qualify for Memphis, along with 42-year-old Gary Woodland, who's 27th, 46-year-old Adam Scott, 29th, and 44-year-old Alex Noren, 46th. Rose won this year at the Farmers Insurance for his 13th PGA Tour title and nearly won the Masters in April. He shows little sign of losing anything off his fastball, and that's just the way he wants it. I'm not really interested in sticking around and just making up the numbers and waiting for the Champions Tour, or, whatever that might be, he said on August 11th in a press conference that was ahead of the FedEx St. Jude Championship that begins Thursday. For me, it's about just really pushing myself to stay elite, to stay playing at the top end of the game, and to kind of keep giving myself and putting myself in with experiences that will create lifetime memories. That's only going to happen by playing in the biggest tournaments and at the highest level. That's my motivation. And if I'm not achieving that, I would sort of really question why I'm making the sacrifice away from family and friends and all the other great things that I have going on in my life. A former world number one, Rose enters the week at number 12 in the official world golf ranking and an outlier in the world of pro golf with his ability to hold off Father Time. He threatened in April to win that elusive second major title. Rose concedes that he squandered a golden opportunity to win the Masters. He held a lead on the back nine when he made bogey at number 11, and the birdies began to dry up, allowing Rory McIlroy to slip into the green jacket for the second consecutive year. Majors and the next Ryder Cup, which will be in Ireland in 13 months, are the prizes that drive his excellence. Rose continues to push himself both on the course and in the gym to stay competitive with the new generation of world beaters who show no fear. 8 of the last 9 winners on the PGA Tour were in their 20s, with the last 3 being 25 and younger. Jackson Koivun at 21, Michael Thorbjornsen at 24, Michael Brennan, 24. The average age of the 70 players in the playoffs, just 31, the third youngest average of players in the playoffs since 2009. If Rose wants to keep testing his game against the best, he can't do much better than Memphis this week, where the playoffs open with 69 players. Daniel Berger sidelined with injury, that all come from the top 100 of the official world golf ranking, including 43 inside the top 50 and 23 of the top 25. Now, Rose says he's rested after taking 3 weeks off since the British Open Championship, and he's poised to make a playoff run, beginning at TPC Southwind, where he pulled out a victory over J.J. Spaun a year ago. Rose trailed by 3 strokes with 5 holes to play, tying the second largest deficit overcome with 5 holes left on the PGA Tour since 2024. He passed Tiger Woods for the longest span between FedEx Cup's wins since 2007. That's 5,075 days since he'd won the 2011 BMW Championship. The age is just a number for this ageless wonder, and Rose, who already has a Hall of Fame-worthy resume that includes the 2018 FedEx Cup title, seeks to add more playoff memories. I'm kind of waiting to sort of really catch fire again, he said. I played some good, solid golf, but I'm kind of waiting for a run. Hopefully the 3 weeks off that we've just had is a bit of a refresher now, and I can really focus on this last final push.
White condemns online vitriol toward fever. From Cindy Henderson of USA Today. Indiana Fever coach Stephanie White spent her pregame press conference August the 11th denouncing the hate, the fear, the mongering, and the divisiveness, hijacking the WNBA vitriol that reached a boiling point over the weekend after DeJohnny Carrington committed a hard foul against Sophie Cunningham. It's a shame we can't have an opportunity to talk about what great basketball they're playing because they are expletive playing, White said during an impassioned speech ahead of the Fever's game against the New York Liberty. We are united. We are connected. We will not be divided. Every day these women put their ass on the line. Every day when they go low, we go high. Love will win. Grace will win. Humility will win. And kindness will win. White concluded, I always stand by them. Everyone else can go to hell. She opened the news conference by addressing the apparent backlash she received following her comments about the Chicago Sky's flagrant 2 foul against one of their players on August the 8th, which resulted in Carrington's ejection for making unnecessary and excessive contact with Cunningham's neck. This isn't necessarily for the people that are in this room. This is more for an online community that's trying to create narratives that simply don't exist, trying to create a fabrication or distortion of who I am, of what I'm about. White prefaced her statement adding, "Our players' success, our players' health and wellness, our players' safety is always a top priority for me. One of the things I pride myself on is my relationship with players." You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 1:30. And continuing, this isn't necessarily for the people that are in the... Oh, I already read that part. I'm sorry. Immediately after the on-court incident, White said officials made the right call during her post-game news conference that she didn't think the foul was intentional. White coached Carrington for 2 seasons in Connecticut in 2023 and 24 and said Carrington is known for playing her butt off. "She's going to compete. Nobody's going to go walking in for a layup," White said August the 8th. "And so I don't oppose a hard foul, but I also don't think that she intentionally went for the neck." Some Fever fans felt White didn't adequately defend Cunningham, with Indiana Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith going as far as calling for White to be fired. The foul and Carrington's subsequent tweet that tagged the Fever alongside white privilege reignited commentary around race, player safety, and transgender rights policies, a topic Cunningham has been outspoken about. On Tuesday, White shot down any claims that she was siding against her own player and clarified she hadn't seen a replay of the foul before she spoke post-game. She reminded everyone that she is also human. "For those who have anything to say about the play in the last game, I didn't see the play in real time. I went straight to a press conference," White explained. "I thought the play got called right. Thankfully, Sophie's okay." Was it egregious? Absolutely. When you have a chance to watch that over and over and over on replay, you can see that. I didn't have that in real time. I take personally any suggestions that I don't 100% always have my players back. I ride with them 10 toes down all the time. All the time. They know that. White was met by a chorus of boos while being introduced in front of the Fever's home crowd at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, an incident Fever guard Caitlin Clark said she hated. "I told White that before the game there was no way we were losing this game for her, and it's tough. That's my head coach. I hated that our fans booed her before the game. That made me a little sick, to be honest," Clark said in her post-game remarks. "It's professional sports. People are going to boo. But at the end of the day, we're going to ride for her, and we're always going to have her back, and it's never going to tear our locker room apart." Clark added, "I just love her and feel for her because I know it can be a lot at times, and she does a great job a lot of times blocking it out. But there's other moments where it can get under your skin, and that's just being human, and that's just life." Clark said she can relate to the intense online scrutiny, adding, "You can have the thickest skin in the world, but sometimes it does get to you. I talked to Steph White earlier in the day, too, and I think we forget a lot of the times we're human, and she has feelings, and there's moments that are really hard. And sometimes that's just the job you sign up for. But at the same time, it's okay to feel those emotions," Clark said. "I just told her I've been through the same thing. There have been days when I've been really upset, and I think our world, we love to hate, we love to divide. That's all we want to do. Nobody wants to see each other succeed. And I think that's a really painful thing for myself to watch. I feel like we need to do a better job at uplifting each other. And I can assure you, there was no way we were losing this game tonight." Excuse me. After the win, Cunningham said she and White have a great relationship and that the outside noise hasn't come between the Fever players or staff. Excuse me. That's what it is to be on the Indiana Fever, on the staff or as a player. You know when you come here, it's going to be one of the things that you're going to try to distract you. But our locker room in there is tight and we have each other's backs. Coach loves us," Cunningham added. "Me and Steph are great. Steph is great with all of us. And so it's really the outside noise that's trying to distract us. But we're good." Cunningham reiterated White's statement, clarifying that her head coach didn't see a replay of the foul. "At the end of the day, she didn't see the clip," Cunningham said, "and you know that. You know what? Dejani, she is a hell of a player. She's a great defender, and so White coached her too. I don't know how many years up in Connecticut. So give her her flowers, and she didn't see it, and that's okay." Cunningham asked that she is now focused on trying to keep the main thing going. White also got a vote of confidence from Fever President Kelly Krauskopf, who, in a statement to ESPN on Tuesday, Krauskopf said, "Coach White has done a tremendous job leading the Fever, and for the second consecutive season has us in a great position for a playoff push. She has kept our team focused and united, all while under the brightest spotlight our team and our league have ever experienced. He has the full support of leadership."
And on to the NFL. 9 must-watch players this week in preseason games. The opportunity to create buzz begins. First, by Michael Middlehurst Schwartz of USA Today. Except for those chasing the final few roster spots, the fallout from NFL preseason games is typically limited. As teams prepare to open the first full week of exhibition contests starting August 13, most coaches have remained cryptic about their plans to involve top players. And with the growing list of injury hits underscoring the risk of giving key contributors extensive runs at this time of year, it's understandable why many teams have gravitated toward shielding their starters from potential injury. Yet, even with the matchup shaped by stripped-down schemes and deep dives on the depth chart, the preseason at least yields some entertainment value, as well as an additional data point for many young players. So, with that in mind, here are 9 standouts from training camp worth watching during the preseason slate. Wide receiver Jacoby Lane of the Baltimore Ravens. At Southern Cal, Lane made a habit of using only one hand to snag throws that once looked bound to fall incomplete. Now, those same contortionist catches have amplified his buzz to a level unmatched by any other rookie. The 6'4", 200-pound target was a strong bet to be a fan favorite in training camp, with his knack for securing catches well outside his frame, sure to produce a handful of dazzling clips for fans. But the impression he's made on teammates and coaches suggests he's more than just a social media star. Offensive coordinator Declan Doyle likened the third-round pick's strong hands to those of former New Orleans Saints wide receiver Michael Thomas, who still holds the NFL single-season receptions record. Now that's a lofty comparison for Lane, but his burgeoning connection with Lamar Jackson augurs well for his early trajectory. His skill set also clearly sets him apart from Baltimore's more modestly built receivers in Zay Flowers, who's only 5'9", and Rashad Bateman at 6'1". Lane can't subsist on highlight reel grabs alone, so he's going to have to become a more sudden route runner in order to answer concerns about his ability to create separation. Getting consistently clean releases off the line of scrimmage and more effectively boxing out defenders at the catch point also could be challenges for the slender pass catcher. If he answers those concerns, however, the buzz might not end when the summer does. Next, wide receiver Denzel Boston of the Cleveland Browns. If the Browns are to discover an offensive spark, it most assuredly won't come from behind center. That much seems clear as the lackluster quarterback competition between Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders continues to sputter along. But even if signal call or shortcomings keep the ceiling on Cleveland's aerial attack relatively low, there are still avenues for growth. One of the primary sources of optimism for the pass attack is Boston. Since the spring, the second-round receiver out of Washington has demonstrated himself capable of picking up the slack in the passing game, thanks to his prowess in contested catch scenarios. Browns coach Todd Monken has taken notice, drawing a parallel between the catch radius of the rookie and 5-time Pro Bowler Mike Evans. Boston has been bumped up to first-team reps, which would allow Jerry Jeudy to be moved around more often rather than kept fixed in the X role, with Watson or Sanders likely needing to be bailed out at least a few times a game, especially as an overhauled offensive line comes together. The 6'4", 210-pound rookie might be called on fairly frequently to haul in jump balls. Next, wide receiver Dejon Stribling, San Francisco 49ers. Upon his surprising selection to start day 2, Stribling became one of the NFL draft's most heavily criticized picks. Less than 4 months later, the Ole Miss product has raced past any question surrounding his draft capital, already owning a rare blend of size at 6'2" and 207 pounds and a breakaway speed of 4.36 seconds in the 40-yard dash. Stribling figured to be a strong candidate to create mismatches in the passing game. He's made his strongest impression, however, with his reliable hands, as several teammates have touted his adeptness at working in traffic. Kyle Shanahan's system isn't easy for a rookie to handle, but San Francisco can create opportunities for Stribling by streamlining his role as a big slot. From there, he should be able to capitalize on scheme touches and run after catch opportunities. That would no doubt aid an attack that ranked 28th last season in yards after catch per completion at 4.5, and will be without key receiver Ricky Pearsall, who will miss the whole 2026 season because of a knee injury.
Next, running back Jonathan Brooks of the Carolina Panthers. Any ball carrier whose number of NFL games played, 3, only narrowly tops his career tally of anterior cruciate ligament tears, which is 2, would typically find himself on the chopping block at this time of the year. Brooks, however, doesn't appear to have any cause for concern regarding his standing with the Panthers. The 2024 second-round pick is an active camp participant for the first time in Carolina after his previous 2 off-seasons were spent recovering from surgeries. Even if he can't fully recover the explosive form he displayed as an all-purpose threat at Texas, Brooks could play a significant role for an offense in need of a complement to Chuba Hubbard. And with the team demonstrating it will stick with a hot hand after Rico Dowdle's emergence last year, his big play upside might be hard to ignore, especially for an offense that needs to do more than just keep pounding. With Brooks having sat out the Hall of Fame game alongside other key contributors, it's a good bet that the Panthers will remain cautious with his usage throughout the preseason. But Panthers coach Dave Canales confirmed the third-year back would absolutely play in the opener against the Buffalo Bills. And Carolina is no doubt eager to get any glimpse of his playmaking ability after such an extended wait to get him back at full strength. Next, defensive tackle Peter Woods of the Kansas City Chiefs. The natural choice here might have been Cyrus Allen, a 5th-round receiver who turned heads before being sidelined by a shin bruise. Although he's back in action, there's probably only so much to be gained in the preseason setting for a rookie pass catcher, given quarterback Patrick Mahomes' expected absence from the slate. If Allen is to push Kansas City's top 3 receivers for playing time, his effort likely won't begin in earnest until the regular season begins. Woods, however, can continue to build a strong case to be a prominent part of the defensive line rotation. Once viewed as a potential top 5 selection, the number 29 overall pick has rediscovered the explosive streak that largely seemed to go missing during his final season at Clemson. Defensive line coach Steve Spagnuolo has tempered the early enthusiasm around Woods, saying last week he has a ways to go on several finer points, including his footwork and maintaining a low pad level. With some additional polish, though, he could see meaningful action on a front desperate for disruption beyond what Chris Jones and George Karlaftis can generate. Next, outside linebacker David Bailey of the New York Jets. Glimpses of the number 2 overall pick shouldn't be hard to come by in the preseason. Jets coach Aaron Glenn confirmed that when his team opens this week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, everybody's playing. That could give Bailey a prime opportunity to show off his advanced pass rushing ability, which Glenn and linebacker Demario Davis have described as already having exceeded the considerable pre-draft hype. Confidence isn't a problem for the explosive edge, as he ignited one of several brawls with the Buccaneers after calling out stellar right tackle Luke Gedke to engage in a one-on-one drill. Gedke likely won't be the last offensive lineman to be frustrated by Bailey, who could have the inside track for NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 1:45. Next is cornerback Hezekiah Masses of the Los Angeles Raiders. Maybe it seems like a stretch to highlight the Raiders' second, fifth round selection rather than a number one overall pick, but it goes without saying that Fernando Mendoza's acclamation to the NFL bears watching. While the quarterback might have an extended wait before he makes his regular season debut for the Silver and Black, some of his draft classmates are vying to make earlier contributions. While fourth-round cornerback Jermond McCoy was the marquee selection of the Raiders' Day 3 haul after his tumble in the draft, Masses might end up providing a quicker fix in an unsettled secondary. The Cal product has pushed 2025 third-round pick Darian Porter for first-team reps opposite Eric Stokes. Las Vegas also has started to give him looks in the slot. That might not be optional usage for the ball hawk, who led the Football Bowl subdivision with 18 passes defended last season, but it could afford the defense additional flexibility to get its best coverage assets on the field. Regardless of where he's deployed, Masses is eager to respond to those who have doubted his tackling efforts. That was a big issue. They said I can't tackle, so I'm going to show them, Masses told reporters this week. Next is safety Caleb Downs of the Dallas Cowboys. In the preseason, new defensive coordinator Christian Parker might be understandably reticent to showcase the full spectrum of Downs' potential usage. Even in a stripped-down role, however, the versatile defensive back might provide a sampling of the ripple effect he can have on the back end of the Cowboys' formerly maligned defense. Working as a nickel hasn't proved disruptive at all to Downs, who shoots into the backfield to drop opponents for a loss as easily as he covers receivers and tight ends. That extensive range of capabilities could prove crucial to allowing Parker to unlock more advantageous looks for a secondary that repeatedly short-circuited last season, with many of the breakdowns stemming from problems in the slot. Though every rep could be valuable for the number 11 overall pick, it's unclear how much work he'll be afforded in the preseason. Cowboys coach Brian Schottenheimer reiterated earlier in August he won't play the bulk of his starters in exhibitions, though he noted the value of the young guys playing a little bit. Between facing the likes of George Pickens and C.C. Lamb in practice and having joint sessions against the Los Angeles Rams and New Orleans Saints, Downs can easily be tested away from a game setting. And finally, safety Dylan Thieneman of the Chicago Bears. The Bears already made a considerable ask of their first-round pick, who was set to help reshuffle the back end of a defense that led the NFL with 23 takeaways last year. With fellow safety Kobe Bryant now sidelined for 4 to 6 months because of a knee injury, and cornerback Kyler Gordon still sidelined, Thieneman faces considerable pressure to be up to speed by week 1. That doesn't seem to be a problem so far. Bears coach Ben Johnson has praised the rookie safety for his instincts, saying last week, "You can see his play speed start to show up." At 6 foot and 201 pounds, the Oregon product boasts a variety of coverage capabilities, which have been sharpened by his matchups with Colston Loveland and other Bears pass catchers. Still, Chicago will need him to be a quick study.
Moving into the life section, the House of the Dragon star wants his finger back. Brian Alexander of USA Today writes, spoiler alert, we're discussing HBO's House of the Dragon Season 3 finale. Beware if you have not seen it yet. Things are not looking good for Lord Corlys Velaryon, played by Steve Toussaint, in HBO's House of the Dragon Season 3, after the Sea Snake was taken captive by Ormond Hightower, played by James Norton, of the opposing Greens. His future looked especially grim when Ormond sadistically cut off Corley's finger, ring and all, to send as proof of life, when just the ring would have sent the message. Still, Corley's faced the prospect of imminent death with honor, never selling out. And yet, against the odds, he survived the August 9 Season 3 finale, now streaming on HBO Max. The way the scripts were leading, people were asking me, "Are you alive?" I was like, I cannot really say. I'm glad they cared, Toussaint told USA Today. I knew how the character's arc would end this season. It was just a matter of keeping my mouth shut around friends and well-wishers. So here's where British actor Toussaint, age 61, is headed with his nine-fingered character. So why did he lose a finger anyway? Getting his finger cut off just goes to show how cruel Ormond was before perishing perfectly in the Season 3 finale. I was actually going to use like a swear, but I was like, why can't he just send the ring, says Toussaint. But no, it's Westeros, so we have to go the extra. Obviously, Corley's braved through the cut with a heavily bandaged hand. The loss of the major digit is going to play into Season 4. Toussaint will also need to wear a green VFX glove for the rest of his time on House of the Dragon, just like Paddy Considine had to in Season 1 as King Viserys Targaryen progressively lost fingers. That horrible green glove is apparently in store for me now, says Toussaint, who wants his prop finger back. I have no idea where the finger is. I would assume it's in the dusty annals of the special effects team. I must ask for it. Might be nice to have. The Greens used Corley's as a bargaining chip in a last-ditch effort to stop the battle against the Blacks, led by Daemon Targaryen, Matt Smith. Even Corley's tries to negotiate for peace rather than see more devastation inflicted on soldiers and innocent people alike, not to mention the children Ormond lines around the city's gates as human shields. Corley's is one of the most experienced men in the realm of warfare. He's been there and done that, says Toussaint, of the Battle of the Gullet survivor. In this season, in this chapter of his life, it's getting to the point where Corley's is like, there has to be a better way. He's seen this too many times. But Daemon dismisses Corley's play for peace as treasonous to Queen Rhaenyra and takes him prisoner. Ulf the White, played by Tom Bennett, goes rogue on his dragon, Silverwing, turning the fire on all forces and nearly killing Daemon with falling rubble. The shell-shocked Daemon appears to go into death mode, woozily taking on all comers before Corley's grabs his sometime rival and urges him to flee the hopeless battle. It seems like Daemon was just finding people to fight so as to die in battle, says Toussaint, comparing it to a Season 2 conflict when the sea snake had to be pulled from battle. I don't think Daemon would ever admit it was life-saving, but I think it is. He's gone so far until Corley's grabs him. It takes Daemon a moment to realize, oh, this is where we are. We're going to live to fight another day. Well, that's my take on it. But don't expect Daemon and Lord Corley's to be the best buds going forward. Corley's looks upon Daemon as a formidable warrior who you want to have on your side. But he's not somebody who you want to have too close or rely on, Toussaint says. They're not going to be bosom buddies after this. And finally, what will happen to Sea Snake in Season 4? Of course, survival on House of the Dragon is only guaranteed until the next episode. But Corlys is alive, heading into the final Season 4, expected in 2028. The Hand of the Queen will have a treacherous road ahead, especially with the increasingly dictatorial Queen Rhaenyra, played by Emma Darcy, who was in no big rush to save Corlys from Ormond's clutches. Toussaint said he's had just one brief conversation with House of the Dragon showrunner Ryan Condal about Corliss in season 4 and insists he didn't get much intel. Ryan just said that it is going to be very interesting, Toussaint said. I'd imagine a large part will be trying to maintain some sort of influence with Rhaenyra and whether he wants to repair that relationship. And if he doesn't, what does that mean? He's losing some respect for her and the way she's handling things, especially toward the end. She's becoming a lot more cold and hardened.
From the Lifeline, they said what? The Star's best quotes. I'm happy being a recluse, Stocking Chaney said in a recent essay for the Sunday Times. The actress, who is 82, who played the rebellious party girl Rizzo in Grease, opened up about her isolated lifestyle in London following the death of longtime partner Daniel Gilham in 2014. It was more devastating than I realized. It had a lag effect, she wrote. Children were thought about, and yeah, I think about them now because it'd be great to have someone taking care of me. But hey, children can be just as selfish as everybody else out there. You've been listening to a reading of USA Today for Thursday, August 13th, 2026 on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We read USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, please call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Ken Drost
and Jim Duffy.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability.